Good morning, good afternoon, those of you on the East Coast. And we have a couple people who live up in Canada where it's East Coast time. Welcome, welcome. I'm Coach Bess. I'm the founder of this amazing community and just your passionate sister coach who is so excited that so many of you are gathering here. You gather here often in this group, and I'm so thankful for you. You are this community, I don't make this community, you do. So I'm, as always, I just have to say, hey, and I love you, and I'm grateful to you for being here. And I'm just going to bring the quickest Monday motivation to you today. We cannot sit here and pretend that this last year and the year before, and for some people even into the end of the year before that, including me, have been rough. Whether it's because of the pandemic or your own life stuff on top of everything with the pandemic, because I know some of us, it didn't hit us as directly as some of others, right? But we've each had our share of struggles. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that that's not real and not valid to you. What I am going to do is bring you a little bit of encouragement from one of my favorite people in the Bible who can relate to us right now. If you are feeling discouraged looking at the world situation or government situation, or even in our industry, the situation where sometimes it starts to feel really dark because we know things aren't headed in the best direction. And as health coaches, we sometimes feel like we might be one of the last voices there, speaking for health and speaking for prevention and speaking for natural immunity and such. So I want to just read the quickest little story to you from one of my favorite characters, because I think we can see that 2,000 plus years ago, 2,500 years ago, King David, who had already been promoted to king and was doing amazing conquests for the kingdom, and he was a warrior king, and he was just like making a name for himself everywhere, but he kept doubting his calling, and he kept getting hammered by the haters. If you read any of this, you're going to see what I'm talking about. But I'm reading to you out of 2 Samuel 7. I'm actually going to read straight from my Bible today. I miss doing that sometimes. I always print scriptures for you, and I'm like, I want to see the Bible and hold the Bible and smell it. Do you ever feel like that about books? Like sometimes it's time to go back to like smelling the book, Read it straight from the page. Okay, 2 Samuel 7. I'm not going to read the entire chapter. Do that on your own, but basically, David had been under the gun with some enemies again, so he's really weary and he's really broken down. And I know I can relate to this chapter, and I know many of you can too. And so he finally settled into his palace, and the Lord had given him rest from all his enemies around him. I love how the Lord gives us rest when we can't handle anymore. And he said to Nathan the prophet, "Here I am." God said that, living in the house of cedar while the ark of God remains in a tent. I'm sorry, David said that. I said God. So David said to Nathan the prophet, "Here I am, living in a house of cedar, while the ark of God remains in a tent." Nathan replied to the king, "Whatever you have in mind, go ahead and do it, for the Lord is with you." But that night, God came to Nathan in a dream and spoke to him and was like, "Whoa, wait a minute, no." So he stopped. The long story short is, he told him, go tell David not to build the house, because David wanted to build a house, a permanent palace, a permanent house for God to live in, the temple. And God stopped that. He's like, no, I've got David doing this job over here, which is conquering and warrior king. And I'm going to raise up his offspring to do the building. So David got depressed and discouraged in his calling because he was under attack so much, but also he lost focus of his individual calling. So what I want to share with you today is, may we let our individual callings, which we intuitively know what that is. I know in my knower, I don't need anyone else to stroke my ego or affirm it, or I know it deep inside of me what my calling is. It's to empower and equip and pray for and be here for and train every Christian health coach that crosses my path who needs me. Before that, it was to minister to busy families who needed realistic, affordable ways of changing their lifestyle. I have never lost focus of that. I am not trying to be an expert in this thing over here and an expert in that thing over there. I can tell you guys that the reason my business is where it is right now is due to the fact that God always sent a Nathan, like he did for David, so either through a song or a poem or a scripture or a meme or a person, to get me back on the original track he gave me. Many times when discouragement and despair overwhelm us, we are losing focus. I know for me, many times it's because I'm losing focus. Or we are thinking somehow that circumstances around us, many times which are out of our control, are somehow dictating whether or not we follow our calling. And I just want to encourage you today that as warrior coaches, which is what we are, we don't have that luxury of letting outward circumstances or pressure or all that stuff from the outside change the direction we're to go if you know in your knower that God called you to this direction. Now, if that's always been a doubt, then that's a whole nother thing, and you've got to explore that with him. But most of you who are in here, you know in your knower. We've talked, we've shared, you know. So circumstances now become difficult, yes. Challenging, abso-freaking-lutely. Ask me about challenging. I've worked from my bed because my legs wouldn't work. I've lived in daily pain for 7 years. I did get a little respite from it a few weeks back for about a month. It was almost unreal. So God was good to me then, and I think that he'll bring back the healing soon. But the point is, if I let all the stuff, the surgeries, the pain, the medicine, the doubts, the scary stuff, the tests and procedures, the, doubts even about partnering with the medical community for my healing. And if I let all those things, my family situations, my kids becoming adults and all the stressors that we deal with as we figure that out and navigate that, if I let that actually sway me from my calling, I want to show you what happened to David. As soon as Nathan gave him the word that, no, you're not going to build the house, your offspring will build the house. So he said, God basically said, I'm going to fulfill my plan for your country, for your nation, his nation, of course, the people of Israel, through your obedience to do what I'm telling you to do right now, and through your offspring. And then I'll establish a house for you, and when your days are over and you rest with your ancestors, I love that he acknowledges that we rest with our ancestors, I will raise up your offspring to succeed you, your own flesh and blood, and I will establish this kingdom. I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be his father, and he will be my son. He also goes on to prophesy all these amazing things to carry on through David's legacy. Guys, stay focused on your calling, your individual role. See it as valuable enough to fit into the puzzle of the future vision that God has for our industry. So your role is just one part. I love this because it helps us remove ego. It helps us set down self-worship or anything like that. Like, I don't like that word, but people that are just so self-absorbed, it helps us put that attitude down and realize we are all part of this amazing mosaic puzzle that is going to make sense, and all the pieces are going to fit together in the end, and our offspring are going to continue it even after us. We're about legacy more than me. I'm about legacy more than me. And when King David got back on focus with his role, and he listened to God when that word came, God did what he said he was going to do. And David could die knowing that his legacy was being passed on. But he started out down in the dumps. He started out very discouraged, very depressed. David gets depressed a lot. I don't know if you guys read much Psalms from David, but you'll see his depression come through in the book of Psalms. And it's because he just was always at war. He was always under attack. He was always being betrayed and chased. And I know some of us can relate to this stuff, either at a point in your life or even as a common thread in your life. I'm sitting here before you where I don't have a relationship with most of the family that birthed me and that I grew up with. It's a very broken situation. And I don't know that here on earth it will ever be fixed. I'm already in my 40s, you know? I think I can hold out hope, but lots of unhealed people hurting each other. And so I know that I can relate to David this way. And I know that when I stay focused on my calling, and I encourage you today to stay focused on yours, God, when he gave these prophecies in this book, they're for us too. So everything that we read in here is an example. It is a prophetic word over us and our lives. And especially when you pick up on something that's redeeming like that. So he redeemed David's depression. He redeemed David's discouragement. And I just wanted to encourage you guys with that today for Motivation Monday. No matter what you're struggling with, it can be redeemed. I have to believe that over my family, right? My birth family. It can be redeemed, and stay on purpose. Don't let all the stuff around us, don't let it get inside you. Sure, we have to read some stuff. We have to listen to some stuff. We can't be ostriches in the sand, right? Sticking our heads in the sand. I wish we could, because that might help me, actually. but we can stop it from residing inside of us. It'll make us sick, you guys. It'll make us sick. So I just encourage you today, dig into 2 Samuel 7, or even just David's story. Like, it's just testimony after testimony after testimony of God redeeming his life for the purpose that he had him in, for the bigger picture of the nation, just like we are part of here. You are bigger than you think you are. You are more important than you think you are. You are needed. Your gifts are so unique to you. They're as unique as your DNA. Did you know that? Your gifts are as unique as your DNA. No one else has that way of talking, or that way of connecting, or that way of retaining knowledge, or that way of, expressing that knowledge in bite-sized chunks to the people they serve. Like, no one else has your exact set of gifts. You are needed. You are wanted. And I hope that this week, as we lead into Christmas, I can't believe it's already going to be Christmas, that as you take some breaths and sit down and celebrate with your family, hopefully, or wherever you're finding joy, and just as you sit and rest a minute, refocus on what your particular calling is, what your role is in this big picture that we are all part of. I love you guys so much. I hope this blessed you. Hey, Tomasita, good to see you. Carl, my friend. Thank you guys for being here. I just saw your comments. Thank you. I love you guys.